Yesterday was September 11th, and it was the first time, I believe, that I have not made a VEDS video acknowledging September 11th on the day that it happened. And part of me is okay with that, and part of me has a problem with it. What it really kind of comes down to is that basically the night before, right around midnight, I just had this idea in my head of doing this silly little rap, and so I recorded it and I put it together. And once I had gotten all the song together, I went to bed, and then I just shot all the video the next morning, and it was a pretty quick and easy video to do. And I wasn't even really thinking about the fact that it was September 11th until I kind of, looked at the calendar and started seeing people's videos, and I said, yeah, that's today. And part of me felt like I had somehow disrespected the day by not making a video about September 11th on September 11th. And that's not to say that I forgot that it was September 11th, or that I forgot about what happened on September 11th, because I could never forget something like that. But it was the first time on September 11th where my immediate thought waking up on that day was not, this is September 11th. It wasn't, for the first time, it was not the first thought that popped into my head. And that's a little strange to me. I don't really know how to process that on some level, because there's the whole 9/11 never forget thing, and as I said, I could never forget that day, young as I was. But this was the first time that I just kind of hadn't thought about it. Like, every year before this year, I would kind of devote a part of the day to sort of thinking about 9/11 and how it has affected the world and continues to affect the world, and America in particular, of course. And this year I just sort of didn't. And part of me worries because that's obviously just a result of time and distance from the event. And I wonder how good of a thing that really is, that I have been distanced from 9/11. It doesn't feel as much like a prominent part of my life anymore, a prominent part of my identity as an American, as a person. But part of me thinks that, part of me thinks it may be sort of a bad thing, and part of me wonders if this isn't what moving on is supposed to feel like. I don't want to say a weight lifted off, but just, it just doesn't strike me as heavily as it used to. And I suppose, the dog's scratching at the door. I suppose that that's somewhat natural, and I don't exactly know what I'm trying to articulate with this, but I don't want to gain too much distance from that event, because I think that every generation has some sort of historical moment that they go through, and it is a part of that generational identity, and it should be a part of that generational identity. And for my generation, it's September 11th. At least for me, it is, being an American. That's the primary historical event that I think of when I think of my generation. And I think that I should be able to gain a certain amount of distance from it, but at the same time, I don't want to become so distanced from it that I feel like I'm not paying it the proper respect and not giving it the proper consideration that I think it deserves. And then I think, well, what about other historical events? Does that mean that they don't matter as much simply because I didn't directly experience them? Well, no, of course it doesn't mean that, but it does mean that I don't have as personal a connection to those events that I do to September 11th. And I guess that's okay. You know, it's okay for me to not feel as connected to certain historical events as I do others. I guess it's okay for me to feel like I'm getting some distance from it and am moving on a little bit. But this is something that I struggled with last night and most of this morning, just kind of trying to decide how this made me feel about myself and the distance that I've been able to gain from it and what that sort of means for myself and for anyone, really. So, if you've got any thoughts on the matter, leave them down in the comments, and I'll see you all tomorrow.